Mantour Ministries presents the Mantour Guy Podcast. We may talk about football. We could mention bacon. We might reference Rocky movies. We'll probably discuss the Mantour conferences, but we'll definitely talk about how to grow in our walk with God. Here's your host, the Mantour Guy, Jamie Holden.
Hey guys, welcome to the Mantour Guy Podcast. Jamie Holden here. We're happy to have you join us again this week. Well, today we're so happy to be joined by Pastor Tony Cruz. Tony is the lead pastor at Freedom Life Church in Lewisburg, PA. He's become a regular speaker at our Mantour conferences, and he's going to be hosting our North Central PA Mantour on April 28th. I've known Tony for over 20 years. We went to school together at the University of Valley Forge. Tony's a fabulous communicator, and we're so happy to have him join us today. So, Tony, welcome to the Mantour Guy Podcast.
Hey, Jamie, thanks for having me, man. It's an honor.
Well, Tony, guys, always love to hear you share at our Mantour conferences. Why are you so passionate about men's ministry and helping men grow in their walk with God?
Well, Jamie, I think that it's very important that we move from this idea, our culture for men is this kind of idea that in some way we're supposed to privatize our faith. We're supposed to kind of be private about it. But the reality is that that's never should be the case. I think men's ministry is absolutely vital in the home, and I love speaking to men who want to make a difference, who want to have better marriages, be better husbands, be better fathers. And there's something to say about children who grew up in homes with men who are active, not just in their homes and in their kids' lives, but active in their faith, where they living out their faith, not just on Sunday between that little 2-hour window or whatever, but they actually are doing something the other days of the week to impact their kids' lives. So for me, I'm passionate about men's ministry because I love to help see men that next place, that next level that they really are striving to get to, but they don't seem to know how to get past it. And we got to get past the first thing is that privatized religion idea that we're supposed to somehow, hey, that my religion, my faith with God, all that stuff is private. That's something separate than my marriage, something separate of my fathering. It's not like that at all. In fact, it's very much straight in the middle of everything. It's dead center to everything you believe and everything you do comes from your faith in God. And so having men understand that is a great passion of mine.
And I know that besides being a pastor and speaking to men, you do a lot of youth conferences and speaking to youth as well. What is the connection that you see between men's ministry and youth ministry, and how can we as Christian men do a better job reaching youth?
Well, again, I think it's a matter of coming from a home. I myself, just speaking for myself, I didn't come from a home that, A, really served God, really served Christ. B, I lost my dad early in my life to alcohol, a bout of alcohol, and I never really got to have that father figure in my life to teach me how to ride a bike, throw a football, change of oil, things of that nature. And so when I got the call early in my life to really speak to people, and I really had a call in my life to preach in general, I really felt a strong tug, even at 15, 16, 17 years old, to speak into men's lives. I was having little Bible study get-togethers with buddies of mine that were just a year or two younger than me in my home after conversion. I mean, I was already speaking into young people's lives when I was a young person myself. And so my church gave me plenty of opportunities to speak to young people, and I saw, the impact that it had. And so I wanted to continue that. As long as God gives me the voice and the opportunity to speak to young people, that platform will always be utilized to its full capacity. So I love speaking to men. I love speaking to youth, especially young men, because honestly, young men don't understand what it's like to be pure. Young men don't understand what it means. Not just what it's like, but what it means to be pure, what it means to be a godly person, because some of them never had that godly figure in their lives. We can't blame them not knowing how to be godly when they had no examples. So, what I set out to do is I don't like to just be a speaker at an event, but a pastor at an event. You know what I mean? Really, that pastoring opportunity, but with that friendship connection, because they don't recognize me as their pastor, but they can talk to me because I'm going to go my way and they're going to go theirs, and they feel like they can talk to me. So I love that opportunity to be able to sit down with them and say, hey, tell me what's going on. And they feel free to do that. I love that opportunity. And that happens in youth camps and conventions and conferences and that nature.
And so true. So many youth today don't have men of God in their house. They don't even have men in their houses. So many are growing up without father figures in their lives. And one of the stats I hear most spoken about youth ministry just breaks my heart. It says that 7 out of every 10 youth that once they age out of youth group, they leave the church altogether and they
Yeah.
don't continue on in their walk with God. How can we as Christian men help bridge that gap? What do the youth of today need from mature men of God in their lives?
Man, they need an example. It has to start with an example. They needed someone to walk it out so they can go, oh, at least, at least I get, my father's not perfect, but at least I get something. Um, it's always been said, what you do in moderation, your children will do in excess. And so if we allow this this kind of movie, this kind of music, this kind of relationship. Oh, well, that's just me, do as I say, don't do as I do. Nobody buys that. Nobody buys it at all. And so the youth of today need a mature Christian man that's able to, man, really just speak into their lives hard, not truth of, hey, I've been there. I know what it's like to struggle with purity. I know what it's like to struggle with, this, that, and the other. But here's how I overcame it. And so they need examples. They need Samuels. You know what I mean? They need Samuels in their lives. They need people that will speak to them in ways that will challenge them and say, wow, I want to be like that. And if I'm half the man that my dad was, I'll still be greater than anybody I know. You know what I mean? Because they look at that example, they think the world of, not that they're perfect, but they at least see the example that is there.
So it's kind of like we need to be the standard bearers. We need to set some standards for them to live according to. Because I've heard that said too,
Absolutely.
that whatever our compromises will be the next generation's bondages because they see us compromise and they fall into it. So we need to be setting the standard and giving them something to shoot for in life.
Perfect. Absolutely. I believe that 100%, Jamie. That's right on.
All right. Well, who's somebody in your past, in your life, that's been that man in your life, that's been a role model, that set the standard, that helped you become the man that God's made you into? And how have you taken his example and helped other younger men today?
Well, there's two people that I can think of right off the bat here. When I was a young man preparing for ministry, I did my internship under a man by the name of Ron Korzanowski. He's a phenomenal man. Um, I was just in my young in my ministry life, about to go to Bible school. In fact, when I went to Bible school, I came back and did my internship under him, and he taught me how to, look at some disciplines, Bible study, how to correctly do some things on the pastoral side of things, pastoring people and things. Just a real great influence early in my life. And then later in my life, when I coming out of being in traveling ministry for some years as an evangelist and even converting into being a church planter, uh, Pastor Jim, my presbyter, has been an amazing influence in my
Yeah.
life, more so than I think he recognizes. I tell him from time to time, thank you, but I don't know that I have ever put into words, and I don't know that I really can. That influence, that not just things that he's said to me in advice, but things that he's the ways that he has supported me just by hearing. And I remember my wife was going through, she had different surgeries in different parts of her life, and him just sitting with me for hours in the waiting room, literally
Wow.
hours. And I could not believe that now as a pastor, thinking about the hours that he spent with me with all the things that has to happen, because pastors work more than just Sundays. Hello.
Yeah.
And so, the time that he spent with me showed me that's what pastors do. So he was an influence in me in a lot of ways, encouraging me, and more so than I think I've ever related to him. So
Yeah. Pastor Jim Pence is an amazing pastor, a good friend. He's been a great friend to our ministry. I really appreciate him too. So I totally get what you're saying there. As a pastor, what's the biggest obstacle that you see men facing and having to overcome in their lives? And what practical advice would you have to help them overcome this area? Like, what's the one biggest area you see men struggling with in their lives?
man, I think it's defining what a father is, defining what a man is, really. Because if you define the man, it'll help you define the father. Some men out there aren't fathers, so I think the biggest thing is defining what a man is and what does that look like. That in some way, uh, what has been acceptable in the world is not acceptable for men of God. Or what is acceptable in other marriages is not acceptable in mine. Defining man and defining purity. I know you said one, but
Hmm.
I think they run alongside each other. Defining what a man looks like, and what does purity look like in this world today? It seems like anything's fair game as long as you're good to your wife and good. We have down to where um, pornography is at an all-time high. The numbers for women even watching pornography is even up too. So, I mean, all across the board, I think there's a lot of uh, lack of accountability to that. You know what I mean? To that aspect, and what does a man look like? That's huge. That is absolutely huge. What does a man look like? And a lot of times, kids fall down, they scrape their knee as a kid, and the father picks them up and say, "Hey, man, real men don't cry." And they slap their leg and they move them on, and they don't tell them that they can actually be people with emotions.
Hmm.
And then we raise these cold men, and we wonder what happened, where's the emotion.
Yeah.
And that's where it went along with every scrape, and every time the father just picked them up and say, "Hey, men don't cry." Listen, not for nothing, but if I sometimes, man, you need to just bawl before God and say,
Yep.
"Lord, touch my family." You know, you need to go before God, and if tears flow, tears flow. That doesn't make me less of a man. It just makes me human.
That is so true. I was raised in that kind of a background where men never cry, men never show emotions, and it made me into cold-hearted man. And I remember the first time God actually started breaking that cold heart, and the first time actually I had a good cry, it was like such a liberating experience, and it changed my life. So I'm
Yeah,
totally with you on that. I hate when men say to young boys, don't cry, don't show emotions. I mean, Jesus showed emotions all the time. He got angry, he cried, he had joy. He was a very emotional man.
yeah. I mean, Jesus wept right before he knew he was going to raise Lazarus from the dead. I mean, he
Yep.
knew he was going to do it, and he still cried. Why? Why would you cry when you know you're going to resurrect somebody? The reality is you can't separate emotion from spirituality, and emotion is very real. And I think men need to understand that.
Yeah, it's so true. Well, you were one of the contributors to our new book, the Under Construction book, and your chapter was about living an unexamined life. Could you share a little bit about that and why it's important for men to live examined lives?
Man, I worked so hard on this chapter, brother. Man, Jamie, I appreciate you let me be a part of what a great work this was. And man, I was very proud to have that my name in that book, because there's so many men that tower above me, in ministry experience and life, and I was honored to be a part of that. But I think one of the things that really stood out to me about my chapter about the unexamined life, in chapter 4, you read a couple things, but one of the things towards the end, I said some things that really stood out to me, and I hope it resonates with people. Is I said small leaks make big heaps. Small leaks make big heaps. Being unaccountable in your life will cause great issues in your life. And so when I started looking at the unexamined life, I realized, and again, at the end of that chapter, you read, world changing men need people with telescopes to tell them where they're going, and they need others with magnifying glass to tell them where they are. And we need that, and that's
Hmm.
that's one of the things that an unexamined life you know hurts us as men. People who don't examine their lives, you need people around you that will help you examine yourself and help you examine some things in your life. Um and my whole chapter is about sinkholes. I relate about sinkholes, and there's a great facts in there, but at the end of the day, a life that's unexamined, you have to question, is it being lived to its fullest? And I'd argue it's not. If you don't examine your life, it's definitely not being lived to its fullest. Jesus said, "I come to give life more abundantly." And if I needed to modify that, I would say life more examined. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? More examined than anything else. And we can change some things, and we can tweak some things if we have the right tools.
One of the things you said in the chapter was don't settle for comfort over conviction and don't fear examination. And I thought that was so powerful because so many men, they do settle for comfort over the conviction. They don't want somebody pointing out areas in their life.
Yeah.
Why do you feel that that is so important?
Well, Jamie, I think for sure the biggest thing with comforting versus conviction is comfort survives where conviction thrives. And I think when we start realizing that when you are comfortable, you're never living out your full potential. When you're comfortable, you're just surviving. You're treading water. You're not really getting anywhere. And if you know, when you tread water, you're just staying above ground, and wherever the flow is going, that's where you're going to go. You're not really going anywhere. When you're comfortable, that's exactly what's happening in your faith. When you're comfortable, you're just surviving. But when you start to live a convicted life, a life of passion, a life of real deep conviction, you actually start to thrive, and you start to actually go somewhere. And that's the difference between someone who says, I want to just settle for comfort, and then there's those who say, I want to really live a life of conviction. Because you can live your life intentionally, or you can live your life accidentally. And when you live your life accidentally, like you stumble upon this and you stumble upon that, you can live for God intentionally, but you can live for the enemy accidentally.
And that is so true. I mean, I see that over and over in the lives of men of God. They run from the accountability, and it is so important. We need other men of God helping us to grow in our walk with God. I know both of us have men in our lives who have had the guts to point things out to us and help us see areas we need to change and areas we need to grow. So that is just such great wisdom and great advice. Well, guys, we're going to be back with more with Tony after this short commercial break, so stay tuned.
I know you're gonna dig this.
Like what you're hearing? Head over to iTunes to subscribe, rate, and leave a review. Thanks.
We're all men under construction. Under Construction is a spiritual how-to book where men come together to share their experiences and the wisdom they've gained on their own journey to biblical manhood and building a legacy of godliness. Written by 30 different men and pastors and men's leaders, Under Construction discusses 6 key areas all men can grow spiritually. Order your copy today at mantourministries.com. God's not finished with you yet. We're all under construction.
Order your copy today at mantourministries.com. The Mantour Guy Podcast, helping men grow in their walk with God.
With the advent of the internet, pornography became affordable, anonymous, and accessible. And with this affordability, anonymity, and accessibility, porn in the minds of many gained a greater acceptability. What we once called hardcore porn, we now call softcore porn. What we once considered softcore, we just now call Game of Thrones. Today, one can easily say that porn has become the norm, and that is even among churchgoers. A recent survey discovered that 64% of Christian men admit that they view pornography at least monthly. That percentage goes up to 77% when considering just millennials, those who are 18 to 30 years old. Among millennials, 36% say they view porn daily. The same survey looked at women, and 13% of Christian women said they had never looked at porn. 33% said that they view porn at least a few times a year, and 15% said they view it at least once a month. To get 250 more pornography statistics, complete with original references and sources, go to covenanteyes.com/pornstats and download the complete report for free.
Sign up for Covenant Eyes using the code Mantour at checkout and receive 1 month of free service. Visit covenanteyes.com today to sign up, and remember, 1 month of free service when you use the code Mantour. That's MANTOUR.
Don't forget to visit iTunes to subscribe, rate, and leave a review. Thanks.
Hey guys, the Mantour guy Jamie Holden here. I'd love to come share at your church, at your men's ministry, at your next men's event, or men's breakfast. I have a challenging word for God's men to help them become the men that God has called them to be. If you'd like to have me come share with your group, visit mantourministries.com to contact me about coming to challenge and encourage your church's men to grow in their walk with God.
Yep. You're listening to the Mantour Guy Podcast.
Mantour season's almost here, and this year we are under construction. Do not miss your local Mantour conference. We have powerful main session speakers, and we have 3 new relevant workshops for 2018. So make sure to put your local Mantour conference on your 2018 calendar. Remember, God's not finished with us yet. We're all under construction.
For Mantour conference dates and locations, visit mantourministries.com. Welcome back to the Mantour Guy Podcast.
All right, guys. Well, welcome back. We're once again joined by Tony Cruz. He is one of the featured speakers at our Mantour conferences. He's also one of our host pastors this year. And I want to give you a chance to get to know Tony a little bit better in our lightning round.
It's time for our lightning round.
All right, Tony, so these are really just quick questions. Give us the first answer that pops into your head, just for the way for the guys to get to know you better.
That's dangerous, Jamie. That's
I know.
dangerous.
All right, so here we go. All right, John Wayne or Clint Eastwood?
Clint Eastwood.
Okay, beach or the mountains?
Oh, beach.
Me too. I love the beach. What's your favorite Rocky movie?
4, when he beats up Drago.
All right, that's a good one. I just watched that one the other day. Is there anyone in modern culture that you would stand in line to get a selfie with?
Someone in modern culture that I would stand in line to get a selfie with?
Yes.
Man, in modern culture, does Derek Jeter count?
Yeah, he's still modern.
Yeah, still modern, even though he retired, right?
Yep.
Honorable mention would be Stephen Furtick.
Would be who?
Stephen Furtick.
Okay. What movie or show do you always have to stop and watch when you're flipping through the channels?
Well, I don't have TV right now, really, but when I usually have to stop if I'm watching Kevin James and King of Queens. King of Queens is one of my favorite shows.
Okay.
I usually have to stop and watch Kevin James. He's good. He's pretty funny.
Yeah, he's a funny guy. Okay, the world is in danger. James Bond or Jason Bourne?
Oh, man, I would say Jason Bourne.
All right.
He's less of a womanizer.
What would be your go-to karaoke song?
Probably Don't Stop Believing or Toto's Africa.
All right. And what is a food that you can never resist?
Oh, I can never resist rice and beans and pork chops, man. I
All
cannot resist that at all.
All
At
right.
all. Or pork, any pork of any kind. I'm Latino, man. Latinos, we love pork, man. We just love us some pork.
I love bacon. I'm not much on the rest of pork, but I love bacon. So. All right, well, that was our lightning round. Thank you so much for answering those questions.
Yes, sir.
Shameless plug time.
Now we're going to go into our shameless plug. As we said, Tony's going to be hosting the North Central PA Mantour on April 28th at his church in Lewisburg, PA. Is there anything going on in your life or in your church that you would like to plug?
Man, we're just excited about what's coming up here with Easter. Obviously, Easter's always a big thing in the church in general. But we have our annual flashlight Easter egg hunt that we're doing, and it looks like we're going to be having it at Lewisburg High School. And last year we had well over 2,000 people show up at our flashlight Easter egg hunt. It went from the first year we did it from 125 people or so to now we have well over 2,000 people showing up, and it's ridiculous. We have over 20,000 eggs. We're gonna try to have 30,000 this year. That's our goal, to have 30,000 eggs packed and ready to go. And we're gonna fill Lewisburg field with that. And we have to move locations because the last 2 years we've caused traffic jams on the road there of the AYSO. We took up a bunch of the fields there, and we're having parking issues and thousands of people showing up. It's ridiculous, in a good way, ridiculous. But now we have a larger area that we're going to work with, and we're looking to rent that and get that situated here for March 11th.
That's awesome. March 11th, you said?
March 11th, yep. When we have registration at about 7:45. It's a flashlight Easter egg hunt, so it's in the evening. And we just had so much success because there was not really many people doing it when we started it. And we're finding that there's a few people that are trying it and doing it now. It's exciting to see that, people come out. We also do some giveaways. We share a brief, gospel good news moment with the people, and it's pretty neat.
And what's your website or Facebook page so people can check that out if they're in the area?
Yeah, absolutely. FreedomLifeAG.com. FreedomLifeAG.com. And you can go there, and we also obviously have a Freedom at Freedom Lewisburg on Facebook. You can check us out there, and at Freedom Lewisburg on Instagram as well. Those are both social media outlets that we use.
That's really exciting, and we're really excited about having the Mantour for your section be at your church this year. We moved locations this year, and we're looking forward to it.
Yeah, man, I'm really glad to have you guys. I'm looking forward to hosting you guys and taking care of you guys.
Well, as we wrap up today, what is one practical piece of advice you would have for men to help them grow in their walk with God?
One practical advice is stay consistent in your daily devotions, daily reading, because in that daily those little daily tidbits, God is chipping away. And that's how you take down a tree, one swing at a time. And that's how we'll often defeat those things in our lives that we're thinking it's one felt swoop. We're thinking it's one service. We're thinking it's one sermon. It's often not. It's often a series of things that the Holy Spirit begins to speak to you little by little by little by little. And I think it's just consistency in your devotional life day to day. You know, I say stay consistent, get yourself, even if it's just the app, the daily bread app, or some sort of little something devotional that will every day give you a little something to work with and get your mind on the right place, as opposed to just the first thing you do is grab your phone and see what the world is saying. I want to, the first thing to do is grab my phone and see what God is doing. You know, if it means an app or a physical piece of devotion, do that, but chip away at it every day.
That's such a great point you just made. I used to do my Bible reading at night before I went to bed, and I switched it up and started doing it first thing in the morning. Before I go to Facebook, before I go to Twitter or check my email, I'd do my Bible reading. And it really did make a difference in my day of having that be how I started my day off, filling with God's Word instead of all the outside noise. So that was really great advice. You know, start every day to do something, start your day off with a devotional or Bible reading.
Absolutely. I think the biggest thing for me is that God spoke to me earlier, right before this new year started. And I found myself rolling over going, grabbing my phone. And then here I am looking at what everybody else is saying. So what I did was I set my devotional time to remind me at a certain time every morning to then wake up. And that's the first thing I read. That's the first thing I see before I check my email, check Facebook, check Twitter. I want to hear what God is saying first. To me, it makes more sense to get the day started right than to end your day right. Yes. You know, because you could be polluted already. And at that point, you're working backwards. If you do it from the front end of that, it can really get your day going the right way.
That's some great wisdom and great advice, guys. There, I totally 100% agree with Tony on that one. Well, Tony, thank you so much for taking time today to be a guest on the Mantour Guy podcast. I always enjoy ministering with you. You're one of my favorite guys to minister with, and I'm glad you could join us today.
Man, thank you so much, Jamie. Thank you for what you're doing and what Mantour is putting out every single, location that you guys are doing. You guys are doing some great work. Thank you for all that you do to make men's ministry a priority in our churches.
Well, thank you so much. And guys, remember, you can attend the North Central PA Mantour on April 28th at Freedom Life Church in Lewisburg, PA. That's Tony's church that he's the pastor of. For more information on that event and all of our other Mantour conferences, you can visit the Mantour Ministry website at mantourministries.com.
The Mantour Guy's final thought.
Okay, for today's final thought, I want to touch a little bit on something that Tony had mentioned about men being the standard bearers for the youth of today. And it is so true. One way I had heard this said before is we need to think about the younger generation as our generation's ceiling is the next generation's floor. And they're going to grow off of the way we live, the way we act, the Christian example that we leave for them. They are going to follow our example, and they're going to grow off of us. So if we're not giving them anything to shoot off of, if we're living a very casual Christian life, relying a lot of sin and compromise in our lives, that's what the next generation is going to pick up on, and their life is going to be even more compromised and full of even more compromises and sin. But if we're setting the standard for the next generation, if we're being men who are living for God, having a walk with God, daily devotions, if we're setting a standard morally and living according to the Word of God and according to God's principles, they will see that in our lives, and they will want to grow from that, and they will surpass us spiritually. If we give them a firm foundation that they can build their spiritual lives off of, they will grow and they will outdo us to go even further in God's kingdom than we are possible to do, because our generation's ceiling is the next generation's floor. So it is important that we be the standard bearers, that we set the examples of what a mature, godly man should be, and we let them see it in our lives. And, we need to find ways to interact with the youth in our churches and in our society. Let them see, that there are men of God out there living for God, walking the walk every day, and giving them something to model their lives after. So many times, we remember in the Bible where Elijah said, can I have double the portion of Elijah's spirit? And, there are younger guys out there, if they look at our lives and they want a double portion of our spirit, they always say if you multiply 2 times 0, you get a big fat 0. And guys, we can't be zeros in God's kingdom anymore. We need to give these younger men something to multiply off of. We need to give them something that they can see and emulate in their lives and grow even more. Tony shared about how he had men in his life. I know I've had men in my life who have been the example of what it means to be a man of God and who have helped me make changes in my life based on the way they were living. So that's my final thought, to be an example, to set the standard for the younger generation out there. And thank you so much once again to Tony for sharing his thoughts today on this subject. Look forward to having the Mantour host at Tony's church. And once again, as we end up here today, thank you so much, listeners, for giving me your time today to listen once again. And if you want to read Tony's chapter Under Construction, you can order your copy at mantourministries.com. Keep us in prayer as we continue doing our Mantour conferences. We are smack in the middle of them, and God's really been moving. Keep us in prayer. Pray for the men who attend the event, for the speakers. And, thanks once again for joining us, and we'll see you next week with an all-new episode of the Mantour Guy Podcast.
Thanks for listening to the Mantour Guy Podcast. Be sure to visit mantourministries.com to learn more about our books, men's ministry resources, and our Mantour conferences.
Hey guys, Jamie Holden here. Did you know that only 10% of churches have a healthy, thriving men's ministry? That's only 1 out of 10 churches. Well, my mission is to see this number become 100%. Join me in my work with HEUS Missions to help develop men's ministry in the local church. Become a monthly financial investor in the work God called me to do by going to mantourministries.com/partner and clicking on the Give Online button. Together, we can see God continue to move among men. Did you know that over 33% of girls have seen pornography online before the age of 13? Protect your daughters by installing Covenant Eyes on all your computers and mobile devices. Covenant Eyes blocks all pornography so that it can't reach your little girl and cause damage to her spiritually or emotionally. Sign up today using the code MANTOR and receive 1 month of service free. Guys, that's a no-brainer. Try it for a month and see how it helps protect your precious daughters from the filth of internet porn. Sign up using code MANTOR, MANTOUR, at covenanteyes.com today. Are you looking for a men's ministry resource that will teach your men the basics of what it means to be a man of God? Well, check out Mantour Ministries' book, Putting on Manhood. With 1 Corinthians 13:11 as the foundation, Putting on Manhood shows how to put your childish ways behind you and become the men that God designed for you to be. With the help of God's Word, the Holy Spirit, and a band of brothers, you can grow into true godly manhood. Order your copy today at mantourministries.com. You can start today to put on godly manhood.
Order your copy today at mantourministries.com. The Mantour Guy Podcast, helping men grow in their walk with God.